Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unapologetically You, where we discuss all things health and wellness. We use science-backed tools that you can use in your life, and hopefully that will instigate thought-provoking topics so it can get you motivated when it comes to looking after yourself and your loved ones. Now, we are pushing the boat out on this podcast. We're taking the hot topic of the day and discussing what Kelly and I have come across in our lives. And we wanted to share this discussion today. And it is about divine feminine energy and how we can embrace this, embody these feelings and as a way of being. So this is for women as well as men. We all embody these energies. We are both masculine and feminine. So we are both yin and yang, light and dark. And this is the podcast, like I said, we're pushing it out of the boat. We're really delving deeper into our unapologetic selves. Don't forget to hit us up on Patreon. You can support us for the small price of a cup of coffee. And we'd appreciate if you enjoyed it, share this podcast. So without further ado, I want to welcome my gorgeous, wonderful co-host, Kelly. Hi,
Cal. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. All the more better for speaking to you. This is like the best parts of my Tuesday, I want to say.
I enjoy it too.
Yeah. There's just something so special in terms of I messaged you, right? I was talking about that first podcast that aired, and I was like, I happened to just wake up and randomly listen to it, and
oh yes,
it just felt so energetic. Like I felt good just listening to it. And I'm like, it's really nice that we feel good when we record it, and it's almost like that's coming across on the
really podcast. I'm glad because so many of the times we have said like this is your morning and this is my late evening, and I've worked all day and I'm tired 99% of the time, but that's okay, aren't we all? But I this is me. I actually trip over my tongue by the end of the day when I'm coaching or speaking, having meetings at the end of the day. Do you not do that?
I do. I can tell what you mean, because it ends up going, I'm trying, and my brain is just not
my brain is not keeping up. Yes, my mouth cannot keep up with my brain, or the other way around. I'm not even sure. But I'm glad that the energy that we both end up feeling. So what I was saying is, despite being tired, this energizes me. And I love speaking to you, and I love the topics that you choose and all the research you do. And believe me, Health does do all of that. But yeah, I'm glad that energy shines through. I really am.
Amazing. Well, thank you. But yeah, I'm glad that we can do this. And I'm all for messages of appreciation. So, and Kelly's so receptive to it. You know how I used to be so freaking closed off, and like I would not be vulnerable. I wouldn't show my emotions. And I've gone the complete polar opposite. And I think that we're going to definitely talk about this in the hot topic of the day. But for me, like I would just share my appreciation of just like, I'm so glad that firstly, I don't think people know, but I met Kelly years ago when I started my website, and I was talking about women in strength and conditioning. And this was years and years ago. I probably like 2013 or something like that. And I interviewed her, and she so kindly, was happy and available to be interviewed. And I wrote that interview as a blog on my website. And then since then, like I'd ask her advice about strength and conditioning and, yada, yada, yada. One conversation turned
into another.
Yeah. It just evolved. And now I get to call you one of my closest friends. Like,
dearest
amazing.
Friend.
Yeah. Amazing that we've developed and established this relationship. So that's where I'm just like, okay, so we normally go through these 3 questions, don't we, Cal? Because this is that new phase of the podcast. So you're the person, I'm going to say, that made me smile this week. So that's
really?
one thing. Yeah.
What did I do?
Just being you, honestly, in terms of how we bond and how we exchange energies, how we make each other think. And I don't think you realize that I am, for those people who know me, I love preparation, and I am such a go-getter. I'm like 1,000 miles an hour usually. But like to have that energy where somebody else pushes you and wants to be a better version of you, even without asking you to. And I think that Kelly vibrates this in terms of, I want to be, you know, a good representation on this podcast and showcase all the knowledge and skills and expertise that we have for you guys, right? And that's what makes me smile, like our connection and the way we're collaborating on this.
We do have that. There must be a word for it, but I can't think of it right now. But we do have that collaborative spirit, synergy. We have a synergy.
Oh, it's a good word.
That's
good word.
Yeah, that's the word I'm trying to think of. Yeah, we synergize each other. Definitely.
Okay, so I've messed up some of the question order. Normally we go for the biggest one, but let's just jump in, because I said what makes me smile. What has made you smile this week?
I am setting myself up for a win. It's going to come, but I've actually, and you should be proud of this, I've projected it out over several weeks, actually months. So March is when it should be the big bang. I don't know what else to call it.
The big celebration, the big launch.
Celebration, the launch. And so the work is being done behind the scenes. Now, the work being done behind the scenes is not usually the fun part, but for me at the moment, it actually really is.
I love that.
So I'm learning to enjoy that. Yeah, so that's a win for me, enjoying the behind the scenes work.
Yeah, because the thing is, a lot of people rush ahead and want to look at the celebration and want to
that's
there
me
already. And I used to be like that. Like you have so many projects or so many things on the go, and then you're like, oh yeah, but I'll be satisfied when I achieve that. And it's usually it's just never really long lasting. It's the lead up to, right? It's the journey towards. And that's what I definitely learned. And so I'm so happy that you found that is something that you're enjoying. So that's awesome. Okay.
It is awesome. Thank you.
What's your biggest win this week? Now, it could be anything. And this is for our audience to think about too. I want you guys to think, what is your biggest win this week? Because, let's share them, collect them, remember them.
Okay, so mine was a physical number. So I've been doing a run program that I did not write for myself. As a coach, it's really challenging for me to write my own program and stick to it without changing it or going back and go, I could have done that better. I could have done that faster. I should do this. I should do that. I go back and I change it all of the time, and I expect so much of myself. So I do Joel Jameson's Metamorphosis program, and there are goals I set myself, but using someone else's program, and I hit it, and it was good because I'd written like the probability of me meeting this was getting less and less because I wasn't keeping up with the program as he had written it for me, and so the probability of me reaching this goal was sort of dwindling into the shadows. But I stepped back into it after Christmas, and after we live in a tourist town. A lot of people come to visit us because we live where they want a holiday. So they come and they stay with us, which is wonderful. We love seeing them, but it is tiring. And if anyone who came and stayed with us is listening to this and thinking, oh, we won't do that next year. No, we love it. We were just saying before, we love it. We'd be sad if they didn't, but it's tiring.
Yeah.
You get tired.
Well, yes, it's a social jet lag, isn't it? I think that's the term that we're coining at the moment.
I like that. Social jet lag. It's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
And you just got to refill the tank a little bit.
Yes.
And so this week I did. I refilled the tank by nourishing, sleeping well, and I have been sleeping well, joy, and then having the battery to go out and do the exercise. But the weather's been beautiful, the beach has been beautiful. There's less tourists here than there was 2 weeks ago, and so I can run on the boardwalk and not be dodging people, as many people. But anyway, everything was a joy this week, and I hit that number way sooner than I predicted. So there you go.
That's an awesome win. It's really good when you hit that goal, right? And especially because that was your intention.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good win.
Yes.
Awesome.
What about you?
Oh, okay. So I reckon I'm not going to give too much away because this is definitely going to be the hot topic of conversation in another podcast. So Kelly doesn't know this yet. And I was supposed to say this in the green room chat, but we were so busy like catching up with one another. It wasn't so much prep for the podcast.
It wasn't.
So over the weekend, I went walking in the sunshine. It's been super cold here. So I was like, I need to get outside in nature. You know what? We're like us in nature. And it's so funny because I was listening to this podcast, which we are going to review in another podcast. Like, this is how profound I found it. And it basically taught me about how we've always been unconditionally loved. Now, for me, I hadn't been able to face that, being worthy, being enough, being accepted, being loved, because there were certain triggers and blocks and traumas, which I won't go into here, but it is in my book, which should be coming out this year. Basically, it's just going through having somebody else say, well, wait a second, you were born into love. You are loved unconditionally without having to do or be anything apart from exactly who you are. It really gave me that big win in terms of, I've got this. Yeah, we are all, every single one of us, unconditionally loved. That every single one of us are powerful beyond measure, and let's step up into our power. So, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Like, it takes a lot of uncovering, revealing triggers, getting over certain things that may have happened in our past, or, if you believe in past lives, that too. But then for me, it was like, it was about time. It was coming, so I feel like the momentum is building. So Kelly, one thing for you, I want to ask, what is your intention this week? So I know that your biggest win, that had obviously been an intention the previous week, but what is your intention coming up?
I had a discussion with a friend today she's a very good businesswoman, and she's always got ideas for herself and me as well. And I love listening to her. She'll always take the time to discuss it with me. But today, for the first time, I kind of like went, I can do some of these things she's saying. So sometimes, because she's high level compared to where I am.
Okay.
She has the expectation that I would be able to do some of these things, and I can't. So I would have to learn the technology side of things to achieve this thing. But today she was really talking about some things that seemed like either I've picked up or gotten a bit better at technology and marketing and things like that, or she's lowered her expectations and really set something, and she's like, you should do it this way. I'm like, I should do it that way. Like, hallelujah. This is really, so I said to her a goal, and she said, oh, I've been thinking about that for you. You should do it this way. And I'm like, yeah, I should. So that is my intention for the week, to look more into that. There's no way I could implement it, but to look into it and do a little bit of study behind it, and what would be outsourced, what could be done, what could be learned. And she also threw at me many times during the conversation, it doesn't need to be perfect. And in fact, the things that she enjoys about the people that she deals with, which are the billionaires with a B, capital B is how she refers to them, and the people they work with, they like the down-to-earthness of imperfection. It doesn't mean it's bad information. It just means the down-to-earthness of imperfection, getting to know someone, building a relationship, she said, because the cleanliness or the clinicalness of perfection does not build relationships or loyalty.
Well, I think she's reiterating that nobody is perfect. And even if you idolize something or someone, you're setting that expectation, and usually it is to fail, isn't it? Because nothing can Nothing can reach the standard of your thought. And what I found really interesting, I'm reading Michelle Obama's new book, and The Light We Carry. I'm pretty sure it's called The Light We Carry. She said the person who, when she was first lady, the people that just kept approaching her, right? And the people that kind of stood back and like withheld, she was more appreciative of. And that's how she met one of her closest friends, because she just held back. And she's like, she wasn't fawning all over me, or she wasn't like desperate to talk to me or get to know me. She just was there. And we happened to, you know, form a friendship and a relationship. And then she invited her obviously to the White House and things like that. And it's just like, it's so funny because people just want to, it's going back to the episodes of previous seasons, people just want to be seen and heard and loved. And everyone's imperfect. Like, none of us are perfect.
None of us are perfect. Not perfect the way the dictionary describes perfect, but we definitely are perfect.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Agree.
Perfectly imperfect.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, that wasn't my words. I've heard that before. And it is. It's yeah, good reminder, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
all
right. What comes next? Yes.
My intention is not to put. This is actually really synchronistic, actually, because I didn't prep this. These questions, I feel, me and you, Cal, like, even though I'm a prepper and you are so good off the cuff and like coming up with all these answers, these are the 3 questions I don't prep. So I make sure that they come fresh and in the moment. So my intention this week, I've got quite a big presentation, actually. So I've got a speaking engagement with a company who is international. I won't mention who they are, but for their corporate wellness day, they've invited me to speak about movement. So it's a massive honor. However, this is the first time I've had different speaking engagements, but this is the first time I feel really good when I'm speaking about the slides, about what I'm speaking about. Like, it's got a mishmash of personal stories and research and studies and all these different things. And part of me is just like, oh, maybe I'm just blabbering on a little bit too much about myself. But I was like, no, because there's a purpose to it, right? Everything I'm speaking about leads to something else. And it wasn't intentional. It literally just poured out through me. And I just kind of, like a jigsaw puzzle, just bringing all the pieces together. And as I'm going through the talk and I'm practicing, I'm actually enjoying myself. And I said to myself, my intention is not to be the best speaker. It's not to make somebody have this huge revelation, tongue-tied words. Realization. I think that's what my brain was trying to tell me, but my mouth was trying to say something else. So I'm not there trying to do anything for anyone. I'm just trying to give good information, and whatever they take from it, fantastic. But I think for me, the intention is just to practice, just to see if this actually works. And if any good comes out of it, or I get repeat speaking engagements, well, that's just a bonus. Like, right now, I've already got the big win, and it gives me the chance to have that experience. It gives me what can I learn from this speaking engagement? Like, how much can I take in and learn and engage with the audience? And usually they don't do engagements with the audience. They kind of just have the speaker speak. And I'm like, no, I want engagement. And because obviously I don't get to see anyone, right? So it's just you on Zoom. So this will be exciting. So yeah, that's my intention for this week. I am so looking forward to this hot topic of the day. So guys, just a quick reminder, this was about a podcast basically I listened to, and on the back of, the menopause chat that we had with Anna, I was looking for content about perimenopause and menopause and females basically. And what I came across was this podcast actually talked about feminine energy. Now I was like, well, wait a second. I'm supposed to be researching and looking for other menopause podcasts so we can talk a little bit more about that. And then I was like, no, it's led me to something completely different. And what I found interesting in a little bit of my research. So this is a bit of a big one. The union of feminine and masculine energies within the individual is the basis of all creation. Now, I found that quote and I was like, that's pretty big. That's such a profound statement. And for those of you who aren't aware of feminine and masculine energies, let me just read out something else I found, that the feminine and masculine energy is a human system. It embodies a human system. And each person should seek to balance these two energies within them to become a whole being. So if they are severely lacking in one type of energy, they may strengthen that by example of another person. And it should not rely on an equally imbalanced person to complete their energy through partnership. Two crutches do not allow for walking with ease. Only two strong legs allow for that. By nature, yeah, it's good, right? By nature, most people will tend to be stronger in some energy and weaker in other throughout life. Some life situations require more of one energy than another to be successful, which we're going to talk about this. But as they are not completely balanced situations, the goal is not to achieve 50-50% balance, but to become aware of these energies and be able to utilize them when they are needed. So, Cal, I found out, I love this. I love that the feminine energy and the masculine energy. Feminine energy includes intuition, nurturing, healing, calmness, emotional awareness, expression, and communication of these emotions, whereas the masculine energy embodies logic, reason, energy of action, firmness, ease of acquiring material needs, survival, common sense. Now, this is all debatable, right? I'm not saying that females and males have these qualities. What I'm saying is these are energies that are in one person. No matter what the sex, no matter what the gender, no matter what you identify as. I love this type of thing, right, Cal? And people, for people who are our regular listeners are probably like, this kind of like all woo-woo with spirituality, but it's like, stick with us with this. Stick with us, because I found another statement about divine masculine and feminine energy, and I love these things because it said if you tap into your masculine energy, you are taking action, you're conquering fears, you're setting boundaries, you're standing in your power, you're saying no, you're being assertive, you're demanding your worth, you're giving, and you take responsibility. Now, feminine energy, ways to tap into this is being vulnerable, nourishing yourself, slowing down, getting creative, following your intuition, surrendering, receiving, and practicing compassion. And before I start this full topic of discussion, I completely resonate with this because we had this conversation about being a leader in the first podcast, I think it was, and we're talking about characteristics and how we are as individuals. What I found is when I said earlier in this podcast that I was kind of closed off to love and relationships, and I wasn't ever vulnerable because I was asserting my masculine energy. I was assertive. I was probably not demanding my worth because I didn't know what my worth was at that time. But I was being assertive. I was taking action, and I was relentlessly pursuing my career. So when it comes to embodying these types of energies, I'm like, well, wait a second. I don't want to be dominating in one type of energy. I want to nurture the feminine side of me. And this is before I can understand which labels were which. And I identified them when I really understood, well, actually, being a go-getter and being assertive and being dominant in my career and achieving that material success was great. But now I want to figure out and really trust myself, practice compassion, be more creative, be more vulnerable, and all those things. But what about you, Cal? Is there any points in your life that you thought, this is how I embody the masculine energy, and this is the part of me that I embody my feminine energy?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know that I, as a younger woman, embodied much of the masculine in terms of standing up for myself,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of asking for my worth, in terms of knowing my worth or having an expectation of my worth. But when I had children, you do change. You become a lioness for your children, and you will not let anyone walk over them. And so maybe a little bit of that flowed into me standing up for myself a bit more. Certainly, when I left uni and I had the nutrition degree, like food and sports degree. I worked in food first, and I was the only female. I had my own lab, but I was research and development for food and chemicals, really. It's hard to call it food. It was chemicals. But a lot of the men around, I don't think any of them would listen to it now. It was a real men's environment. Like they were gawky. As in, that they'd be. I used to wear a lab coat that was buttoned all the way up here because I found one time when I was slicing bread and leaning over, and you look at the composition of the bread. So I was leaning over to look at the bread, and I had a top on that didn't show. There's not much to show, but you could see the shape, that a feminine shape, and all this was going.
Oh no, are you serious?
I am serious. That was a long time ago. Things have changed for
Well, you'll be
men, I think, and for
surprised.
women.
You'll be surprised. Though. You
I
go
like
to a
to
group of
think.
boys and they'll be like, yeah, her or her. I'm
Yeah,
like, seriously?
yeah,
This is still happening?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
so
Anyway, it happened then, and I didn't say anything. I was aware, but who was I going to say it to either? I mean, they were all doing it. Who would I call out? Who would I tell? What do I say? I was 19,
yeah.
and they were all much older than me. I think the youngest one would have been late 20s, early
Well, they
30s.
should
And to
have known
me,
better.
of course,
That
of
was the key.
course, they should have. Um, but I didn't say anything either. And yet, I think if I was a mum at the time, I would have. So becoming a mum had gave me a little bit more masculine energy. And you might think the reverse. You might think that you'd
I
become more
think that.
feminine,
That's
right? But no, that's
interesting.
standing up for myself and knowing your worth and knowing that that wasn't acceptable came to me when I was a mum.
It's really interesting. Yeah. So you described it as being a lioness, like protecting your
Yes.
cubs, would fight for them, would do anything,
Yeah.
right? And as soon
Anything.
as your children were born, you embodied that masculine assertiveness because you were like,
Hmm.
I will do anything for these babies. Don't get in my way, kind of thing. Whereas
That's
before
right.
children, you were probably a lot more passive. Probably,
Yes.
would you say you were more creative and intuitive in those periods as
I
well?
don't think I ever lost my creativity or intuition intuition intuition. I don't think I ever lost that or let that, because that's an important part of me, and I've always grown up with my mum and my grandma instilling that in me.
Yeah.
I didn't lose that, but the sliding rule, it just that standing up became more dominant in my personality. But then who said that that is a masculine energy? I mean, that's a human thing to say. Some human has said that's a masculine energy, but is it? Is it not a motherly energy? Is it not just a protective energy? You can call it what you like, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that sometimes our words can be so limiting in terms of this is male or this is female or this is this. And so I do like the non-binary, the non-labels, because as humans, we need to label anything, everything.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when I started meditating and practicing more mindfulness, one of the teachings that I remember saying, you don't need to identify that bird. You don't need to identify what's happening. Just enjoy it. So don't just think, oh, well, that's a bird. What type of bird is it? Oh, it's doing this. It's just like, it doesn't matter. Just enjoy what you're being, what you're feeling in the present moment. And I feel like we're limiting ourselves when we go, this is divine masculine and divine energy. But what I feel like the podcast had obviously diverted me, rather than, it is a menopause podcast, and it is the link is in the description below. It's an awesome podcast, but for me, it diverted me away from menopause because it really honed in me celebrating the beauty and the wisdom in our lives, honoring the goddess. So this is predominantly for women. It's not looking at the divine masculine per se. It's more embodying and honoring ourselves, right? So how many of us are actually aware that we have an inner truth guidance system? Because I know for sure I had 100% self-doubt in my guidance system. I was highly intuitive as a kid, but I lost that through pain and heartache. And then what ended up happening is I ended up mistrusting and second-guessing myself. And that really hurt the aspects where I was intuitive. And my internal guidance system, I was like, well, this compass is off, this just isn't working. I can't trust myself in doing these things. I didn't honor myself enough to take inspired action. I didn't even know what that was back in the day, but you do it, right? There's something that is in you, that you have this feeling to do something, or you have an idea and a thought becomes a thing or an idea or a project, and it manifests into something. And I feel like I grew that mistrust, but that I was very much in that, what they would class now as a masculine energy, that I ended up losing some of that. And I feel like we do need to nurture that in ourselves, but not only as females or non-binary, whoever you class yourself as, but as males too, because the highest suicide rate is men at the moment, right? So men are triggered and unable to seek support and be vulnerable and emotional with their feelings, because they technically aren't embodying those feminine traits of energy. I mean, not feminine characteristics. It's just energy of, what did I say earlier? It was about being vulnerable, nourishing yourself, slowing down, being creative, surrendering, receiving. Like, how many women would actually receive a compliment right now? How many would actually receive a compliment and take on that compliment and actually go, yeah, thank you, rather than, oh, I just got that. This is an old top, right? I just got it years ago. Or they dismiss it with something else. And it's like,
you're taught to do that. It's supposed to be polite. It's supposed to be, humble.
I don't think it is. I think it's a confidence thing. I think that we're
partly taught, for sure.
We're either taught, oh, well, be humble, don't brag.
Yeah, exactly. Humbleness.
And I'm like, well, why can't we accept and isn't that receiving? Like, women have such a hard time receiving. Mums especially have a hard time receiving.
Yeah, guys do too, though. I think guys do too.
And that's what I mean in terms of that. They're not embodying that feminine energy, because if they were able to receive, well, then they would have that balance. But then saying that, when I read out earlier, there is no balance. It's just in different parts of your lives, you're going to embody one thing over another.
Yes, you do. In different parts of your lives, in different circumstances. Like I said, the sliding rule.
Yeah.
Like,
I found really interesting part of the podcast where she said, we are not serving ourselves being overly busy. So baby boomers, post-war era meant commercialism and capitalism rules. So the stress served them well. No, she said something like, did stress serve them well, or are we learning a better way? And what is the better way connecting to our inner wisdom? So if we sought for guidance and confirmation to give us the right path, you know, in terms of, I'm kind of butchering all of these words, but basically she was saying in society, we've learned a certain thing. So maybe we've been asked to, you know, be humble, not accept compliments, not receive. Well, how much did that serve us, and how much is it serving us now? So something that could have happened post-war era probably isn't applicable to the new generation now, and this is why all of this information is coming out. So it's almost like, isn't it better to connect to our inner wisdom? How much are we seeking guidance, or are we actually getting confirmation from others to validate what we're doing, that we're on the right path? Can't we trust ourselves more and look into what's society not doing? You know, how can we kind of go away from validation of social media, of likes, of comments, of being in the limelight, to go, actually, like this week, and especially, I've taken a week off Instagram. I'm not going on it. I'm not checking anything. I've not even done that during Christmas or even on holiday. I was committed to the business and posting. And on Sunday night, I felt this frustration because I was like, oh, it's not getting that many views, and like, it's not really getting engagement. Like, I just felt frustrated. And I was like, there's something bigger here. I'm getting distracted by social media, not only for my business, but also it's consuming my life now. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to focus on my YouTube channel. So for this week, I'm just going to test it out and just not open the app. I haven't deleted the app off my phone. And that first day yesterday, I didn't really have a craving to look for it, but I was like, no, I'm serving myself by going. Even over Christmas, I was committed. Even on holiday, I was committed. Let's just take a pause. Nobody's even going to notice I'm gone off social media for a week. And it's just like, how much are we trying to put ourselves in this platform to be seen, to be heard, to be approved of, when we're forgetting that only we can give that to ourselves? So that takes confidence. That takes like big balls.
To what takes big balls? To step away from it,
to step away and not think about not serving others. And like, I want my information and the knowledge that we give, even in this podcast, to serve others. But for me, I'm like, but are you serving yourself first? Is it good for your well-being? What are you looking for when you're on social media? And every time I see a post, like, I've been quite scrupulous at the moment. I've not been on social media for the social aspects of why social media was created. Every time I look at a reel, okay, what caught my attention? How is it formatted? Okay, now I have to engage with this person. Now I'm following them because I eventually want that engagement back, or my comment will be seen. So everything I'm doing is very analytical, and I feel like that embodies my masculine energy, which is fine. I'm happy with that. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. I've got multiple projects on the go, but I'm not honoring my divine feminine as much. So I went offline and I'm like, I want to paint. So I've painted a few gifts for people I love. I'm going to go read a book, or I'm going to go walk in nature. And I'm honoring those things a lot more to kind of like not balance out, but kind of like tip the scale in the other favor.
Yeah. Good. That's just trusting your intuition. That's what that comes back to, you know. So you're learning to trust your intuition again.
But that's where I'm saying that the masculine energy doesn't embody that. Like, if you're heavy in your business, or how can you counterbalance that in another way that fulfills your soul, that brings you that joy in another way?
As a man, no idea.
We need to get somebody in and like have this conversation with us and just going, how do you honor your
Yeah.
feminine and masculine energies?
Yeah. It would be different for every man, though. And again, a man at a different stage of life. So I have met where I live now, there's a lot of older men even where I lived before, but where I worked before, there are a lot of younger men. And the experience that comes with life, with having relationships and families. And I think that brings that softness and that intuition to a man, whereas a younger person or even an older person without that experience would have a different story to tell.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of we're all learning and we're discovering and uncovering certain aspects of ourselves through experience, right? And through lessons.
Yeah.
We're going through different relationships, or we're going through different times of society and life, and just saying,
yep,
well, actually, it doesn't need to be all male dominated all the time. Like, we don't need to have women in power labeling themselves as having these masculine traits anymore. Like, how could we empower and embody our own selves and step it up to be who we need to be, rather than adopt certain male characteristics just to fit in that type of role? Because it's like with anything, right? If we're talking about labels, if you think of a doctor, what gender do you normally think of? If you think of a CEO, who is the image and the vision that comes into your mind? What about a nurse or a teacher? And all of these things, it's like we are so buried in the labels because we've grown up with it, but it's almost like going, wait a second, I'm catching myself out of these biases, and how can I pivot this perspective? How can I change that if I would want to? And that's where I think that it comes down to, in that podcast in particular, like, we have different phases of our menstruation, right? When we menstruate, we've got the follicular phase, the luteal phase, the ovulation stage, obviously then the actual menstruating. And it's just like the ovulation, she mentions ovulation as being the empress on the throne. And that ovulation means being irresistible. Obviously, you're closer to menopause, and your increased awareness of this cycle is that the gentle way isn't strong. You know, when I said earlier about women in power, well, you can't be seen as being vulnerable or weak or, all of these things. But she mentioned that if you're increasing all of these things and you're sitting in that powerful empress energy during ovulation, for me, I describe it as you could do anything. Like, you feel amazing, you look amazing, and you've just got this whole new confidence around that ovulation phase. And those are the hormones just going through your cycle, giving you that aspect of knocking anything that you attack out of the park. But she says that gentle way wasn't seen as strong, but it's not true. It's not true, because being driven and not doing is, you don't need to be on acceleration mode all the time, right? You can actually sit back and allow things to come to you. You can actually be gentle and still have that power. Like, it reminds me of Cleopatra.
Yep. Or even more modern day, Jacinda Ardern, who recently resigned during the week. And because she resigned, a lot of the comments that she's made over the last 5 years have been coming up, and all of them are about, you don't have to, gentle is strong. Exactly what this podcast said. And I'm not sure when this podcast came out. I didn't even look, but maybe she got some of those comments from Jacinda Ardern anyway.
No, it was an older one. It's not a recent one. I literally went back through this lady's history, her archive, and it's not a most recent one. And this is why I find that these synchronicities are happening more and more often. It's like I was supposed to be led to talk about menopause and women going through menopause, and maybe when they're a little bit older that they've got that experience, but your hormones are going crazy. So how can you embody or recognize the female energies, the masculine energies? Like which areas of your life are you being pulled and pushed in, and how can you kind of counterbalance that by looking after yourself? And I think that that's why she didn't even epitomize how this relates to menopause. I'm just saying that now in terms of I've not gone through it, so I can't be an expert, or I haven't really no valid opinion on it. But what I'm saying is, these are just hypotheticals. You know, what are you guys thinking of, or are you embodying these different phases because the hormones are changing and you're going through a new lesson, a life cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But what if it's not your hormones going crazy? What if it's your hormones doing what hormones are meant to do, but you're looking at it from a masculine point of view?
Oh, I like that. I like
What
that
is
because it goes back to how society wants you to fit into a box.
Because it's way easier if you fit in a box. It's easier for everyone. It's easier for me. It's easier for you. It's not easier for the person going through it.
Yeah,
You
agree.
know, menopause or anything, and any other emotional or hormonal or whatever. It's not, but it's easier for other people to. It's easier not to speak up. It's easier if they don't ask for help. It's easier if they say they're okay. It's easier if you get put on hormone replacement therapy. It's easier for society.
I agree. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think that you kind of epitomize this whole hot topic of basically, are you able to tap into what you need at that time without conforming to what others feel that you should be, or what society wants you to be? Are you unapologetically being yourself?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God,
Yes.
that
And
was
follow.
powerful. Okay, so before we round up, we always
Hmm.
give this health motivational tip of the day. I don't know
Yes.
why I sang that. I'm gonna start this off and actually say
Mhm.
that my health tip of the day, I'm gonna continue to embrace my divine feminine energy by being more creative. And it's funny because I
Mhm.
wrote this ahead of time. So this was pre-planned. So this is what I wrote basically, is saying, I
Mhm.
want to embrace my divine feminine energy. I want to be more creative. I want to settle into stillness. I want to embrace things that feel good and retract when things don't feel good. So, when I was talking about synchronicity earlier, and I said, I've been painting
Mm.
more in this past week, I've been going out in nature, I've been listening to my body, and it's just enhanced, which means that the intention that I had was prepping for this podcast and not going on social media, or listening to my body, listening to myself. That definitely has to be, you put an intention out there, you're going to follow it through. Like, even if it's not purposeful, you're gonna eventually follow it through. So for me, it's moving my body, so do something that
Yep.
feels sensual. How many women are given permission to say, yeah, you can be sexually active, you can enjoy sex, and you can do things that give you pleasure and heightens your play? Like, we've never really been given permission to do that in society, because it's like taboo to talk about sex and have these urges. And it's so funny because I want my health motivational tip of the day to focus on moving in a way that makes you feel sensual, that gives you pleasure, that heightens play, that moment where you're enjoying your body and embracing that empress on the throne, as I mentioned earlier. And for the men out there, if you're thinking, okay, how am I supposed to be doing that? You have
Mhm.
this type of energy. Ground yourself into these areas to be more playful, be more adventurous, having moments of stillness or vulnerability with somebody else. Maybe having a conversation about what you thought about this podcast. Are you able to nourish yourself or be in the stage of receiving? So yeah, that's my health tip of the day. What's yours, Cal?
I don't know if I mentioned this in the green room or whether I said it at the beginning, but I think I said it at the beginning here, I've been a bit tired. So nourishing myself, or continuing to nourish myself with food that fuels me, uh, sleeping well and moving my body as well. So Oh no, hydration. Hydration is another thing for me. In the hot weather here, I have been waking up with dehydration headaches. So
Mm.
I need to focus a little bit more on that, be a little bit more deliberate
I love it.
with,
So nourishing, connecting to earth, because those are the things
yes,
that you're basically doing, nourishing what you're here to do. If you don't need to be all go, go, go all the time, you can actually settle into just being.
yes,
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I loved that part where you said earlier in the podcast of, who's asking us to be these types of energies, and how can we, be ourselves unapologetic.
Yeah,
So
unapologetically. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we don't
you
need
said
to
it
apologize to anyone.
right.
Did I?
Yeah,
Should I try and say it again?
try.
Unapologetically.
Yay! That was kind of Australian though. I remember
Was
that's
it?
yeah.
Unapologetically. See, I can say it British, no worries, but Australian, unapologetically. It's hard to say it in an Australian accent, but Brits say it's so easy. I'm
Amazing.
teasing you. It is hard to speak
No, I
properly.
love it. I love that we're just having a play, aren't we? And this is the
Yeah, we
fun
are.
of it. But guys, if you found this podcast useful, please comment below, share it with your friends and family members. And we would love for you to be a part of our community on Patreon. Support us. Our link can be found in the description box below. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you see our lovely faces, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell so you do not miss any alerts on the latest podcast on YouTube. And I hope you enjoyed this new episode. I know it was a bit out of the box, but this new season and this new format is definitely something that we're shifting towards. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the next one. See you soon.
See you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.